I want to approach them from two ways. First of all, I want to use examples. I'm going to use one example of developing a skill through these levels. And the other way I want to do it is I want to talk about your brain. If you imagine your brain is like a computer and you have a certain amount of RAM, you have some working memory, you have space where you can hold ideas that you're actively working with, and it's a fixed and limited amount of space. As we start working our way through these levels, we're going to be talking about what we're using that space for at every level and what changes to be able to move that forward. So if I start at this first one, the big words they like is non-situational recollection. Non-situational recollection means basically if I'm learning something, I can remember I have the knowledge about it. If you gave me a test, I could answer what is a switch statement. This is what a switch statement does. There's two aspects of that. It's that I'm focusing on, I know the features of this skill that I'm working on. I know the basic rules for the skill that I'm working on. And that's what's filling that working memory that we're talking about. That's what's filling up our brain space. To use as an example, if I'm talking about learning about conditionals in code, and I'm at a novice, this is the type of things that would be filling up my brain space. What conditionals are there? There's ifs, and there's switches, and there's if-elses, and that type of stuff. I'm going to remember that a switch can only branch my flow on one expression. I can only do it when I have discrete values for that expression, and I'm remembering, don't forget the break after every case statement in my switch. And I've got, these are the rules, that's my rule, don't forget the break that I put in my head. These are the features of how these conditionals work. This is a novice level on conditionals. Absolutely great. When I go from novice to competent, I'm going from non-situational recollection, which is I can regurgitate all those things if you ask me about them, to situational recollection, which means I realize this is where I need one. In order to do that, I've got to free up brain space. In order to free up brain space, there's no shortcutting this. It is practice and more practice and more practice until you can take those things that are in your working memory that you're having to think about and move them to more of an automatic space, almost like a muscle memory type of space. And as I do that practice and those things become more automatic, suddenly I'm freeing up that brain space and I can start paying attention to the context of where this goes. And that's where I start getting into the competent, and on a switch statement, I would say, I'm writing a method, I need to do something. Oh, this is where I use a switch statement. I'm now to competent. Now, I want to point out here that a lot of academic environments never get you past novice. I passed the test and I'm done. And unfortunately, that's where we have this big gap in our industry of not being willing to bring on junior people, is because we need some of these basic skills in place. And if all they have is the knowledge and they don't have them moved up to being competent with them, that they can realize, now I need to use it and I can apply it in this context, nobody wants to put the investment into helping them get there. And that's a shame. And that's something I help businesses with, just as a side note, of course. Moving aside from picking on academics, if I'm now competent with my conditionals and I'm coding along and I say this switch statement needs a conditional, or this piece of logic needs a conditional, I can solve this problem with the switch statement. Now I'm thinking about, how do I fit this thing into this context? And that's what's filling up all of that brain space. How do I move forward? Well, again, can't shortcut it. We got to go back to practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it until what I'm having to use to fill my brain space with goes to becoming more automatic, more muscle memory, and it starts freeing up some of that space. And as I free up some of that space, I can start moving into the proficient level on the Dreyfus model. Proficient level they describe as holistic recognition. This is where you can see how all the pieces fit together, not just I can plug this into here. How does it all fit? And as I start looking at how does it all fit, this is the first time I'm at a place where I finally get to start applying some judgment. I get to start weighing, there's this solution and that solution. And this one may be a better solution than that one. No, in this circumstance, this one's better than that one. And I'm starting to do some of that, apply some of that professional judgment to my craft. In the Dreyfus model, they talk about at this level, they talk about you use axioms instead of rules. You know, at the beginning where it was don't forget your break, now you're using rules that help you go, this is often a better idea. This is a general guideline. They're much less hard and fast rules. A good example I like to give of this is a design principle that's very commonly repeated in object-oriented design is prefer composition over inheritance. Now, if you don't know what that means, because that's too coder for you, you don't have to. You just have to hear that first word, prefer. Prefer says, I have two solutions. I have composition as a solution. I have inheritance as a solution to a problem. Prefer, most of the time, composition is a better solution. Oh, I guess that would be that way. Sometimes that's not true. I have to make value judgments. This is the proficient level of practice. So if I'm talking to someone about conditionals and they're proficient, they might look at this and go, okay, I only have one expression. I know here that a switch statement beats an else if ladder. That's a better solution. Either works, one is better. Am I doing the same conditional somewhere else? Maybe there's an even better solution. Maybe polymorphism, I can pull that out that way. Ooh, I'm not doing it somewhere else. Maybe polymorphism's too heavy of a solution and I should just use my switch statement. Which one is clearer to people when they're reading it? Which one is simpler? This is proficient level thinking. Oh my gosh, where do we go from here? There's two more levels. So the next level that we do this at, we go from here, it says, after I've been doing that for a while, I've been doing all this weighing for a while, it kind of takes a weird twist. From here, where I've been thinking a lot, you go to starting to get a feel, kind of almost a gut feeling. I see a situation and I get that gut feeling that tells me which way to go. And that's that automaticness starting to kick in again, right? We're practicing over and over and over. We're doing this all the time. And we're getting a feel for what direction we're going to go. And that's freeing up brain space because now I can lean on that feeling a little bit and use my brain space for other things. I want to stop here and talk about a challenge in this model. It's not a challenge in the model, it's a challenge in learning. And the challenge is this. Let's say I'm a novice and I'm just still learning, don't forget my break, don't forget the break, don't forget the break. And I have a problem. So I go to an expert and I ask a question about conditionals. And they start telling me, well, this feels like a better solution. And I'm like, why? What does that mean? And they're like, okay, I have to take a step back and think about why I have that feeling. And they start telling you about judgment. Well, this is better in this case, but this is better in this case. And there's all these trade-offs you have to make, and you have to think your way through this problem to come to these conclusions. Now the poor novice is back here going, don't forget the break, don't forget the break, don't forget the break. And this apple cart of ideas that they're holding in their working memory just gets knocked over. It's gone. And they got no value out of it. They got a lot more mess. And that's something that's really important to realize is if you're jumping between multiple levels of this model, it can be hard to build those bridges sometimes. I think we've all had that when we've been learning something new and we've gone to someone who's an expert and we say often, they don't know how to break it down for me. And this is why. And so it takes a certain amount of care and practice to be able to bridge that. And that's something I get to spend a lot of time on. So if I'm looking at this feeling and conditional at the expert level, I'd be code along, blah, 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 and be like, a switch feels like the best fitting, lightest solution to this. It'll adapt to change easiest. What am I using my working memory for? Well, that depends. Hopefully I want to continue getting better. And if I want to continue getting better, that working memory still has to be holding a piece off to the side, and that piece is for self-monitoring. I feel like this is a better solution. Am I done? Or am I going to look at it and say, how did that work out? Did that go the right direction? Are my feelings leading me the right place? And we're almost in a training loop on those feelings to make sure that they're taking us to the right place. So with that, when that training loop gets to the point where that's so automatic and I don't have to worry so much about whether I'm feeling my way to the right place, but I almost can sense whether I'm headed the right place or not, and that working memory frees up, that's when the last level hits. The master level in the Dreyfus model is when I have my working memory and my focus completely absorbed into the work that I'm doing. I'm not having to worry about self-monitoring. I'm not having to worry about juggling all of these pieces. All I'm worrying about is executing on creating this thing that I'm doing, or executing on this skill. I can be wholly absorbed. When I'm driving a race car, I'm not thinking of don't forget to shift and where my line is, all that type of stuff. If I'm a professional race car driver, I'm only focused on me and the machine and the road and what I'm doing are one, and can focus wholly on where I'm trying to get to. And that's a master level execution. If I can help, please reach out to me for you or for your business. And thank you for spending this time with me.